There is a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that reads Mae West, an American actress, singer, playwright, screenwriter, and comedian. Her entertainment career spanned 7 decades. Mae West has been inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame, first appearing on stage at the age of 7, her last film at the age of 84. The New York Times labeled her an American institution, as beloved and indestructible as Donald Duck. Like Chinatown and Grant's Tomb, Mae West should be seen at least once. Who is the real Mae West? Meet her yourself and decide if she deserves to be banned by NBC, arrested in New York, or be voted by the student body of UCLA as Woman of the Century. Today, meet Mae West.
I'm glad you came out to see me.
I'm glad you came out to see me. Getting out for events is good. Life is good. You only live it once, but if you do it right, once is enough. My name is Mae West. I started small time, ended big time. The fun was all the middle and between. Today I'll take you with me to visit old vaudeville, Broadway stage, the golden age of Hollywood. And if you're good, we'll meet a few stars. No, I bet you're good. When you're good, you're very good. When you're bad, you're better. Say, do you like my dress? I've often said it's better to be looked over than it is to be overlooked. Besides, I don't worry about diets. The only carrots that interest me are the ones you get in a diamond. I generally avoid temptation unless I can't resist it. Let's get on with this presentation. I hope you don't find it too shocking. Maybe you will. I've always said those who are easily shocked should be shocked more often. I was born in Brooklyn. I don't remember the year. Brooklyn is my time, beautiful tree-lined streets, plagued with horses, and a brand new bridge to Manhattan. The people, well, they dress fine, and the men waxing their English guardsmen mustaches. I like a man in a mustache. I like a man without a mustache. I like what a man does under his mustache. I've always said a man's kiss is his signature. Now the main man in my young life, my father, they call him Battling Jack, a boxer he was. By the time I came along, he was selling carriages. Mother and I would ride in the finest carriages in town. Right before they were sold. Pops didn't like me being in the theater, that is, until I won $10 cash money in an amateur talent contest. Then he liked it fine, carrying my cases for me from theater to theater. Pop said that I had more nerve than Rockefellers got oil. My mother, Matilda, Tilly to our friends. My mother loved and shared my every joy and success. My precious mother. There came a day when I drank some hooch. I came home and was rude to my mother. That episode upset me to such a degree that I never drank again. You might see me drinking in the moving picture shows, but in real life I don't touch the stuff poison it is. I've seen it ruin people. Life is full of enough troubles. Why drink your own? Now my career started on the vaudeville stage at the tender age of 7. I was billed as Baby Mae. And I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted the spotlight. And they introduced Baby Mae, but the light man fell asleep. There was no spotlight on me, so I stayed in the wings. Baby Mae! Not me. I wasn't going to walk out without a spotlight. So I stomped my foot as loud as I could. That woke up that old light man. He put the spotlight on me, and then I walked out. You see, it's vaudeville where I got my real education. That's where I saw folks performing for other folks. I saw what made audiences tick, and I knew what made audiences go wild. It's the vaudeville stage. Now, if you're a performer, this is solid work, because you could sign on and work a circuit and go to theater after theater after theater, in town after town after town. Vaudeville stage, it's 10 to 15 individual, oh, the press is here. 10 to 15 individual acts put together for a show. On the vaudeville stage, you could see almost anything. You could see magicians, you could see singers and dancers and jugglers and comedians. You could see trained animal acts. You could see acrobats, all put together by this fella here. This is Tony Pastor, a crooner he was. Now in his time, entertainment was highbrow, the ballet, opera, or burlesque. Not respectable. Tony Pastor here put together this 10 to 15 individual unrelated acts, called it vaudeville, to such success. By 1880 he had his own theater. By 1890 it's all across the country. Vaudeville, such power, such success, that to this day, in your modern rocket era, you can still name some of these vaudeville players. Who's this? Milton Berle. Started on the vaudeville stage. What comedian do you know had a violin part of his act? Jack Benny. That's right. Started on the vaudeville stage. What about this? Bob Hope and Fanny Bryce. That's right. These are the Gum Sisters. They called themselves the Gumdrops. The youngest one, Judy Garland. That's right. This fresh face belongs to Mickey Rooney and the husband and wife comedy team. Vince and Adam, that's right. How about this face you might associate with Hollywood? Henry Fonda. He did a two-man act, a show about Abraham Lincoln. These brothers, the Marx Brothers, and the greatest magician of all time, Houdini. Let's see who else. This brother and sister dance act is started up. Fred Astaire and Adele. That's right. Fred Astaire and Adele. They went to vaudeville stage. Such success they went on to Broadway. When Adele got married in 1933, that's when he went to Hollywood. Let's see who else. Oh, he calls himself the greatest entertainer of all time. Here he is grown up. Oh, you got it. Sammy Davis Jr. That's right. And this beautiful face belongs to Rita Hayworth. She did a dance act with her father. And, I'll give you a hint. She did the Charleston on the stage with her stockings rolled down to her knees. It was a scandal, I know. Did you recognize her? No, this is Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker. And me. I was born Mary Jane West. My friends call me May. Now my first big town on the circuit for vaudeville after my own was Milwaukee. I went with a friend of mine, his name is Frank Wallace. And in Milwaukee, Frank Wallace proposed marriage to me. He said to protect me. From what, I do not know. I agreed to marry Frank Wallace, and I stayed married to him for 3 weeks. I think marriage is a fine institution. I just wasn't ready for that kind of institution. Now, at the very height of my career, Frank Wallace comes out of the woodwork to sue me. The judge thought that 3-week marriage worth a couple of blue chip stocks. I wrote him a check, never thought of him again. I think his mother should have kept the stalk and thrown him out. Now he went on to stay on vaudeville. I went back because I want to make it on Broadway, the big stage. My first Broadway show was with, did you recognize him? Oh, Al Jolson, very good. Al Jolson didn't even get to the hint. Very good, honey. Al Jolson. I played on Broadway for 112 performances with him. But I didn't make it big. I didn't make it big yet. That isn't until I did a dance. I did a dance called the Shimmy. I did it for a couple of blue blood Yale type boys. They broke up the joint and I was fired. I didn't move my feet a lot. But the opposite is true. The theater offered me a contract as the Shimmy Girl, coast to coast. That's an offer. I turned it down. I'm going to last longer than a dance. I'm going to be bigger than a dance. Now that I know what I've got, I'll spend the last breath of my last penny proving it to the world. You see, I write my own dialogue. I understand what makes audiences tick. Every word I deliver, I write myself, which is also how I start making some cash money, you see. I'm making $350 a week at a time when the average salary is about, well, $30 a week. Now, there come a day when we were heading down to the theater, and I told the driver, take a shortcut. The traffic was terrific. So he takes a shortcut down by the dock, and I look out the window, and I see a woman walking with a sailor on each arm. And I thought to myself, she spends too much attention to her makeup and not enough attention to her worn clothing. But in the turban on her head was a bird of paradise feather, the desire of every woman. And I thought, tisk. She does not know how to exploit her exploitation. I went home that night and I couldn't stop thinking about her, thinking of how she could work her way out of that predicament. I realized I had a story in me, and I started writing. I started writing on every scrap of paper I could find, brown paper sacks, stationery, anything that would hold ink. And when I was complete, I read my play to my mother. She loved it. She read it to our attorney, Mr. Timoney. He loved it. He says, man, we're going to produce this ourselves. Well, brother, you need money and plenty of it. We need players, we need costumes, we need scenery, and we need a director. So I took my play to the director, Edward Eisner, and I said, Edward, I want you to read my play. He said, sure. I'll read it and get back to you next week, Tuesday. I said, Edward, I want you to read it today. He says, May, honey, I don't have my spectacles. I said, Edward. I pushed his chest with two of my fingers. I'll read it to you. He said, collapsed down. I read every single last word of the play. He popped up like toast and said, May, honey, you got a hit. You got a hit. What do you call it? I call it the Albatross. No, May, honey, that's too heavy. The Albatross. No, we need a title that is sensational, something that's never been used before. We need to grab attention. We're going to call it. Dare we? We dare. This play got so much attention. The adverts are fantastic. If you can't see it from the back, it says, if you can't stand excitement, see a doctor before visiting May West. Everyone's talking about this particular production. It runs 375 performances every day in season, twice on Saturday. Everyone sees it. The chief of police, the mayor of New York City, 325,000 tickets are sold. Now, the opening night for the second season, I've made my corrections, I've made the adjustments, I'm in my costume, the curtain goes up, and the police raid the theater. I'm arrested for corrupting the morals of youth. I'm taken away. I'm taken away and taken to court. Now, the judge, who never saw the play, never read the play, and the jury, who never saw the play, never read the play, was very displeased with me. You see, the DA, he couldn't find, the assistant DA, excuse me, he couldn't find one word, one phrase that was lewd, lascivious, or obscene. So he shifted gears. He said, it's not what she says, it's how she says it. It's not what she does, it's how she does it. They made everyone associated with the play promise never to do it again or pay $600 in fines. I paid the $600 and took 10 days in jail. You see, honeys, you can't buy publicity like that. It was worth $1 million. My name was on every newspaper in town. And they didn't know who I was before, honey, they know now. I could have got out after 2 days, but I stayed in for the 10 because the publicity was so grand. Everyone was talking about it. Here I am again, right here in court. Do I look nervous? No, I wasn't nervous at all. Now, what'd you say, honey? Oh, yeah. That's right. Now, this settles down, as things do. I go back to the theater one night, I come back from the production to my hotel. The night manager says, Miss West, your diamonds are this hotel's best advertising. My goodness, but they're beautiful. And as I walked away, I said, honey, goodness has nothing to do with it. I went back to my room, to my typewriter, because I realized I had another story inside of me. My diamonds were making quite a splash, it's true. And I started writing once again. I do love diamonds, I always have. I've been quoted as saying if a few are good, more is better, and too much is just about right. I didn't mean to collect diamonds, they just seemed to pile up on me by friends and admirers. It's true, I love diamonds. Now, the play I wrote, Diamond Lil, the story that shaped the rest of my career, the story that was my life. Diamond Lil and I climbed the ladder of success wrong by wrong. I am her, she is me, we are each other. My manner of walking, my manner of talking all comes together in this character. I write a book, it's read by 95,000 people. You see, Diamond Lil is a keen, sharp businesswoman with a heart of gold and reminds everyone that a full-figure girl is fine. You see, this story takes place in 1890, where a full-figure girl is desirable. Now in the 20s, a straight, boyish silhouette is fashionable. Those flappers, they want the pills to swing on a flat front. It is women as well as men who are fond of Mae West. Now, Mae West is surrounded by men. I think that I should be surrounded by men as well. I only like two kinds, foreign and domestic. Now times are sweet. Everyone's making money in the stock market. It's a party. The bootleggers can't bring the hooch in fast enough nor age it properly in their bathtubs. Everyone's in. Shoeshine boys, dressing girls are all buying stocks. Actors, directors, on paper, they're millionaires. And then right before my eyes, the panic, the great panic. I saw brokers holding hands, jumping from windows. There were 5,000 people on the streets of New York selling apples. Plenty of them actors. As for me, my money is in what I can wear, diamonds, and what I can watch, the theater. I take Diamond Lil and I bring her back on the road. She sells tickets. But the theaters that I'm playing are mainly the theaters I played in vaudeville, and many of them have turned over into movie palaces because it's easier, cheaper to run a reel than it is to hire dancing gals and musicians and the whole works. Hollywood might have some opportunities. Hollywood is positioning itself to be a colossus. Indeed, in 1930 itself, 410 films are produced. They make a nice round numbers, and I figure they could use my style. So I jump on a train to sunny Hollywood. Beautiful place, beautiful people, beautiful budgets. And I discover that Paramount Studios is teetering on the brink of financial disaster. They need to sign a big star. They sign me on contract for $5,000 a week. I know a good contract when I negotiate one, but I wait weeks for my first project. Finally it comes to me. It's Night After Night with George Raft, but my lines, they're flat. And everyone's so busy running around, no one's got time to talk to me about it. So I go back to my little apartment where I have, you know, my typewriter, and I rewrite all of my own lines. I figure better to ask forgiveness than permission. Now, the day the film arrives, and I arrive to set and deliver all of my own lines. I was a hit! I stole the show! George Raft said I stole everything but the cameras. I discovered that I love working in film. You see, I understand it. I can feel it when the light is right on my face. If the shot is long and it should be short, I have them change it. If it's short and it should be long, I correct them. Am I difficult to work with at the box office? Not the box office. Maybe on the set, not selling tickets. And I discovered I love working with designers. This is a piece done by Elsa Schiaparelli. She's Coco Chanel's #1 rival. She understands lines. Now she's too busy to come to me at a point, and I was too busy to go to her for the fittings. So I had a life-size bust, made it myself, crated up, sent to her. She uncrated it and said one word, shocking. And that was the name of a very successful perfume, Shocking, by Elsa Schiaparelli. Here we are, I'm going. Oh, here, what's happening? There we are. Your modern technology is not always convenient, I have to say. I've discovered as a time traveler. Now, my favorite designer is, you tell me her name? Edith Head, that's right. She understands storytelling with costuming. I would say to Edith, honey, make my gown tight enough so I look like a woman, loose enough so I look like a lady. She loved it. I said, honey, it's yours. To this very day, that quote is attributed to her. Her advice, ladies, your dresses should be tight enough to show you're a woman and loose enough to show you're a lady. I let her have it. Now, every day in my picture, she'd done him wrong. She would sew me into my costumes. Diamond Lil, I translated it from the stage into film. He'd done him wrong is Diamond Lil. No room for zippers. That's how she showed me in. This was Edith Head's very first film credit was with me. Now, this picture, she done him wrong. The production code was up and running. They shot this script so full of holes it looked like Swiss cheese. I had to write sentences in so they had something to cut out. They were watching me like a hawk. It's hard to be funny when you gotta be clean. They cut this picture down to 66 minutes. That's the shortest picture ever to win an Oscar. The best picture, 1933, 66 minutes, she done them wrong. And it was also banned in Australia, Finland, and Atlanta, Georgia. This is also when a League of Decency was formed to do something about that Mae West. Now this is the film where I met the actor. I heard somebody here say his name, Cary Grant. Well, I was at the studio and I was working on my typewriter on dialogue, and I looked out the window and I saw the best looking man I had ever seen. I said, who's that? They said, no, Mae, he's untried, he's untested, he's new, forget about him. I said, well, if he can talk, I'll take it. They introduced him to me. He said, hello. I said, you got the lead. Now his name, Archibald Leach, he was a juggler on the vaudeville stage. He picked out Carrie Lockwood from the studio name books. I said, Lockwood, that's too long, it's too cumbersome. He changed it to Cary Grant. Yeah, fine looking man. Indeed, I wouldn't mind being his neighbor. I've always said, love thy neighbor. And if he's tall, dark, and handsome, all that much easier. Now, when I travel to perform, I never sightsee unless there's a zoo. I love the zoo. I always go to the zoo at every opportunity. I have a secret desire to be a lion tamer. And I know when it started, I was just a tyke. My father took me to Coney Island to see the lion act, and it was thrilling. It made my heart beat in my chest. My career would be made if I could get into a cage with lions. So I write a script for this purpose, to get into that cage. So I go to the set the day I'm to film with the lions. Early, 8 o'clock in the morning. I've got my maid, my manager, and my makeup artist. And we're walking to the set when the director stops me and says, "Man, you can't go on." Why? The trainer had his arms almost ripped from his body. I said, "Well, where's the assistant trainer? If he's got arms, we can go on." No, he insisted, and I insisted. Finally, he relented. He said, "All right, man. We'll film that shot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That way, if you get chewed up, we wouldn't have lost the day." Well, you see, after lunch, I had the cage cleaned, the sight, the smell, the evidence of blood entirely removed. 4 o'clock comes, and I walk into the cage. I can hear them close the steel gate behind me. The cage is surrounded by 6 cameras. I've never worked with more than 2. That's to be done in one shot. And by every cameraman, there was a man with a weapon and live ammunition with the instructions, "Shoot to kill." The beast makes the slightest advance toward her. So I walked in another step and I cracked my whip. The lions went into their act. They jumped from stool to stool to stool. I did the whole scene, one take, walked up to the largest beast, put my arm around his neck, and took a bow. Here it is. Wow. The entire crew erupted into applause, and someone had to bring the director a drink of water. I did go back later to retake that in a clearer shot because it was the talk of Hollywood. Now, this was the first movie premiere of the Great Depression. Everyone came. It was a jamboree of jewels. It was a festival of everything fabulous. And I wrote the entire picture myself. This picture saved Paramount Studios from financial destruction. And every word I wrote myself. But there was one line that seemed to be more famous than all the rest. It just made a sensation around the country. It was a line that I put in on a whim, inspired by my little monkey. We called him Coffee. He was a darling. He made me giggle. He would eat grapes, but only after he peeled them with exaggerated care, like a banana. So in this picture, on this whim, I spoke to my maid. I said, "Peel me a grape." The country club was hysterical. I now find that I'm the biggest star in Hollywood. And if that sounds like bragging, how else am I going to say it? My income is second only to this man. What's his name? That's right, William Randolph Hearst. It's a low second, but second nonetheless for a certain period of time, although he hates me. He won't let any of his newspapers coast to coast advertise any of my pictures. He writes letters to Congress. When will Congress do something about that Mae West? What's Congress gonna do? Name Twin Lakes in the National Forest after me. Now I continue. with my Hollywood pictures. Belle of the 90s was my next picture, which was originally called It Ain't No Sin. And then Publicity Boys, they got 40 parrots all trained to say, it ain't no sin. At the last moment, it was changed to Belle of the 90s. They released the birds to fly all over Southern California for the rest of their lives, land on people's laundry lines and fences saying, it ain't no sin. Go into town, go west for a man. Klondike Annie was next. That frosted old ass, me playing missionary. Every day's a holiday. And then it seemed the world wanted to pair me with this fella, W.C. Fields, in a little picture called My Little Chickadee. That's right, W.C. Fields, W. William. That's Bill. I know him. He came up in vaudeville as a juggler. He created a funny persona and made his career with it. I can tell you, in real life, W.C. Fields doesn't drink water. He's a two-fisted drinker. I'm proud of it. He carries a flagon of whiskey wherever he goes. He says, in case of a snake bite. Furthermore, he carries a snake. Indeed. I'm not saying the man's lazy, but he puts popcorn in his pancakes so they'll flip themselves. Now, you know that I don't like drinking, and I agreed to do this picture with him if he promised not to drink on the set. He agreed, and he treated me like I was a fool, drinking behind curtains, drinking out of a brown paper bag. One day, he shows up to the set, 3 sheets to the wind, and I haven't kicked off the set. He's not a fan of mine. Indeed, on one section, he wanted a little 5 minutes of dialogue. His persona was developed with his dialogue, I understand. I said, go ahead, Bill, write your 5 minutes. After that, he wanted equal billing with me for writing the whole picture. Let me tell you, honeys, you don't let anybody hold anything over you but an umbrella. I said, no going, Bill. However, the picture was a fantastic success. You see, at the very end, he says my most famous line, and I said his most famous line. When we're about to part, he says, why don't you come on up and see me sometime? And I said, I will if I can, my little chickadee. That's right, it was a big hit. Now I did one more picture called The He Is I, but I didn't write my own dialogue. I did it as a friend, as a favor for a friend, and it was a flop. This upset me to such a degree that I left Hollywood. I went back to the stage. I understand the stage. I can control the stage. I took a picture script and I converted it back into a stage play. I went back to New York with the idea of doing Catherine Was Great, a play about Catherine the Great, the Russian Empress. Well, this had needed to be filled with tall, handsome men. That's what I figured. So the advert went out for the auditions, and the day of the auditions, the theater, all the way around the block, the tallest, most skyscraperist young men were lined up for the auditions. It happened coincidentally to be a heat wave that day in New York, and somebody called the papers and said Mae West brought the heat to town. Now, this particular play had a fantastic production cost, about $150,000, which is astronomical for a non-musical play. But honeys, it was the costumes. They were gorgeous. You see, this cape here was sewn with 75 pounds of beads, and it was too heavy for me to move comfortably, so we had to hire these 2 young men to move just the cape. That was their job. But it was still too heavy for them to do comfortably. So, gals, you know what you need, don't you?
Strong men.
That's right. A couple of tall, strong men. I hired them myself. Those ones in the white hats. Indeed. The rest of my career was done on stage. I suppose that's enough for me talking about me. Now that you know me, you could talk about Mae West for a while. And if you have an opportunity, come on up and see me sometime. When I wear the hat of Mae West, I do think the thoughts of Mae West, but when I take it off, why then, ow, I become plain old Martina again. Aww. Thank you, Martina. I'm an educational entertainer. It's my delight and privilege to be here to present to you again.